ORWO has a new color film available. 2 new color films available. I have shot those films. I am ahead of the game. I am very quick to get my videos out. Don't look into it. The negative is greenish. The images are grainy. Let's talk about ORWO. ORWO is a German film manufacturer. Originally a part of AGFA in the early 1900s, and then after World War II, ORWO was in East Germany and AGFA was in West. In the 50s, ORWO was able to sell products under the AGFA brand in East Germany, and then later developed their own ORWO trademark instead of having to use AGFA's name. In the 90s, the company Filmotech was formed to continue the ORWO products in production after bankruptcies. And then in 2022, Filmotech merged with the German photochemical company Innovascote to form Innovascote Filmotech, which is the parent company of ORWO now. Innovascote makes film for companies including Lomography, Berger, and ADOX. ORWO has a production plant in Wolfen, a coating facility at Monheim am Rhein, probably not nailing the pronunciation of that, and has said that they have another production facility in Shanghai, China. In 2022, ORWO announced their new color films NC400 and NC500. NC500 is apparently based on an old AGFA stock. And they mentioned that on their website, saying, "At the core of our new color film lies a unique chemical formula based on the wonderful and legendary AGFA stock last used in the Oscar-winning film Out of Africa, famous for their greens, desaturated shadows, and enhanced grains." Genius. No better way to entice a new generation of 20-somethings interested in shooting film than with a shout-out to the movie Out of Africa. Despite the different names, NC400 and NC500 both claim to be 400 ISO films, so let's see what we got. First up, I shot a roll of NC500. It's a rather washed out color film that has a look somewhat reminiscent of expired film results. Super muted colors, and it's very grainy for a 400 speed film. It has nothing on any codec color film, so making that comparison is largely unfair. In fact, ORWO is pretty aware of that. Kodak stuff has pretty realistic colors, along with pretty consistent manufacturing quality as well. My first roll of NC500 was not a great introduction to this new ORWO stuff. I got a few fine shots, then halfway through the roll, everything else was drastically underexposed. I'm telling you, nothing changed. I used the same camera, the same lens, the same battery in the camera for other rolls right before and right after this NC500 with no issue. I'm also not sure that I can even contribute this as a problem at the lab either. It's just that the film stopped working like halfway through the roll. First few shots are fine, nothing in the middle, and then a few shots at the very end that came out really underexposed. But I'll tell you this, I shot that entire roll at 400 ISO, so not super happy. After this was a roll of NC400. Same camera, same lens. I recently bought an 85mm f1.8 lens for my Canon, and I love it. The NC400 roll turned out properly, at least technically speaking, all of my frames are there. It's still a very muted color palette. In fact, maybe slightly more muted than the NC500, and I think about as grainy as the NC500. ORWO describes NC400 as similar to its sister, the NC500, but with less grain and more deliberately vibrant in certain colors. You will find that the NC400 is uniquely balanced towards greens, desaturated shadows, and a more subtle grain. I don't really find this to be a more subtle grain against NC500. They seem very similar to each other. And with these lab scans at least, the 400 is much cooler against the 500, and I don't see anything being deliberately vibrant in certain colors. But to be fair, there's a lot of variables in scanning, including lab scans that happen that impact your final image. Still though, these films definitely have a look that's going to appeal to people that want a grittier, more subdued color film. Something that isn't intended to render everything in bright, saturated colors, and instead can be, let's say, a little unpredictable. In place of Out of Africa here, ORWO says that NC400 is based on the legendary AGFA stock last used in the BAFTA award-winning film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with the best-selling soundtrack provided by the awesome photographer/musician Bryan Adams. Who exactly is your target audience, ORWO? ORWO has been labeling these early NC400 and NC500 rolls as limited edition, explaining that only a small quantity are available across the globe, so be sure to get an order in before everyone else does. That being said, there's now a version of NC500 that's listed on their website for pre-order. That listing doesn't say limited edition, but like the packaging box image that they have up there does say limited edition. I don't know what makes this new version of NC500 different from the previous version of NC500, or if they're doing more NC400. An earlier update from ORWO back in December of 2022 mentions that they're working on 3 color film products, so we'll just kind of have to see what they have in store. In total, I shot 4 rolls of the ORWO color stuff over the last couple of months, 2 NC400s and 2 NC500s. Of these, I like my second roll of NC500 the best. A nice bright day did help to bring out a bit more color on that roll, and I maybe wouldn't mind shooting more of this if I was sure that it was going to be consistent with the look of this roll. When this film is developed, it results in a green negative. And while this is maybe odd, it's not entirely uncommon. Lomography has some films that aren't the common orange negative. Kodak Aero color lacks much of a color tint on the negative. Some films are like that because they are made with different layers, such as lacking an anti-halation layer, and that impacts the colors. NC400's negative has more orange in comparison to NC500's, but both are pretty different from what you might be used to with something like Kodak Ultramax. Sorry, ORWO, I know, you're doing your own thing. I'm not comparing you to Kodak. Speaking of lomography though, the ORWO film is pretty reminiscent of lomography's Metropolis film, a color film that gives a similar washed out grainy look. Lomography did just roll out their new color film, ORWO 92, which does seem pretty similar to the ORWO stuff, even more so than Metropolis. And Lomography sometimes works with a Novus code on their films, so it's pretty likely that ORWO 92 is just some variation of ORWO NC500 or NC400 or whatever. My tips for working with the ORWO stuff is maybe don't treat it like a 400 ISO film. Probably give it a little bit of overexposure, like a 200 ISO. I've heard that people rate it closer to 320 ISO, which is probably technically more of what the actual film speed really is. The overexposure gives you a little bit more to work with, maybe helps you to avoid some of those, grainy or muddy shadows. Or you could maybe underexpose it a little bit. It kind of darkens things and maybe brings out a bit more saturation in the colors as well. And if you scan your film at home, then that might be the route to go with the ORWO stuff, especially because it is a weird kind of looking negative, and a lot of lab scanners like Fuji Frontiers and Noritsu's are really calibrated to work properly with a very standard looking orange negative. When I scan at home, I use my Lumix GH5 paired with an older Canon 50mm macro lens. I have this slide snap strip scanner, which can scan a lot of film really fast. And I also have the Veloy film holder and a number of Veloy accessories for camera scanning as well. Honestly, the color results of these ORWO films vary enough between the lab scans that I got and the camera scanning samples that I've done that you might just have a considerably different experience with your images. The big takeaway from NC400 and NC500 is that it's new color film that isn't made by Kodak. The key thing here is that any company that's able to produce color film is important in keeping this stuff alive and offering variety in what there is to shoot. Kodak is a behemoth. They're able to make what they make because so much of their infrastructure exists from a time when so much of their money went into just producing film, or largely only producing film. Kodak can do it all in-house. Make the film, coat the film, cut the film, perfect, package it, all in Rochester, New York. They're a quintuple threat. ORWO is probably having this stuff made across a number of facilities that aren't all in the same place. Innovascope does some stuff, their other 1 or 2 plants do some of it, and then they send it to China to get packaged into the canisters. Pretty different from what Kodak has to go through, and this probably impacts the quality control of the film's manufacturing. ORWO used to make some color film stocks decades ago, and I believe the last time that they did that was the 1990s, and things have just changed a bit since then. ORWO has also rolled out NC500 in 16mm and 35mm motion picture rolls, which is more notable than its release in photo rolls because it's the only color motion picture film out there from somebody that isn't Kodak. NC500 in motion picture form lacks the anti-halation remjet layer that we see on Kodak's Vision 3 stocks. This layer protects the film when it's running through the camera at high speeds from scratching and from light reflecting off of the pressure plate in a motion picture camera. Normally, color cinema film is developed in the ECN2 process, and color photo film is done in the C41 process. But NC500 can easily be done in either. And again, I don't know why. I don't know what the purpose of that is. ORWO hasn't said why there's no remjet layer on that film, so it's just another odd aspect to all of this. Now, because this stuff is being offered in large 35mm motion picture rolls, but lacks that remjet layer that standard photo labs can't really handle a lot of the time, it means that this ORWO color stuff is ripe for bulk loading. There are very, very few or no standard C41 bulk color rolls available out there. Like, you can't buy 100 feet of Portra 400 and put it into your bulk loader, even though you used to be able to do that. So being able to buy like 400 feet of a C41 friendly 35mm film stock means that you could roll that down into like 70-ish 36 exposure rolls and still take it to a normal photo lab for developing. I have chosen not to shell out for 35mm or 16mm rolls of NC500 at the moment, but luckily, very, very skilled people have taken that film and done detailed tests with it. Cinema Repository have posted a couple of videos on YouTube of the film in 16mm showing off some of the footage and like exposure tests. Tyler Purcell, who shot these tests, also did a great write-up on the cinematography website forum which details some of the issues with the film, mainly citing some poor manufacturing such as inconsistent perforations, leading to a lot of movement when shooting in a movie camera.
Now we're going to switch to the ORWO, and you can immediately see pulsing in the image. You see that? The whole image is kind of pulsing. And that's one of the things that we've been noticing about the stock so far, is that it does have a weird emulsion issue.
David Jean Schweitzer has also posted samples shot in 35mm with Aton Penelope cameras. I don't really love the look of this film. I'm not much of a fan of Loma Metropolis either, but just like with Ferrania's efforts to produce new black and white film in the form of P30 and Orto 50 and Adox's Color Mission film, which I really liked, ORWO's work to produce new color film is interesting. I wish there were some more details around the ORWO stuff, what the future of it is, what this new NC500 is in comparison to the current stuff, maybe more detailed data sheets, because those are really important, especially if you're doing like really precise work with the films and trying to achieve some sort of consistency, working in a darkroom and printing from it. Data sheets, pretty useful. Hopefully this does evolve and improve over time, especially in the motion picture form of it, because, you know, that's a lot of time and money to be investing in like shooting film like that. and getting back poor results that are the result of the film's manufacturing. At the moment, at least, the ORWO color film doesn't seem that hard to buy. A quick search pulls up many results for places to purchase it online outside of ordering it directly from ORWO. And I've also had luck finding it in physical camera stores here in Toronto for a price that is in line with just most other color stocks available at the moment. So I mean, try it out for yourself, help show that there is, an interest from the film community in a variety of color film stocks out there, and companies that are trying to pursue making more color films. See what your experience is with it based on how you like to scan your films, and crank up the Bryan Adams classic, everything I do it for you, and shoot from the hip. Okay, right. Thanks so much for checking this out. You can find some stuff down in the description below for ways to support the channel through some merch and the Patreon that I have available. Also, just a couple of links for ORWO stuff. I bought the rolls that I shot from Downtown Camera here in Toronto, and I had also pre-ordered them originally from ORWO last year as well. ORWO's communication on some of the pre-order stuff left a little bit to be desired, because I just had no information from them until suddenly it just kind of showed up. And I had sent them an email asking about the status of that before it shipped, and just never got a reply. So, yeah, check it out if you can, if you have an interest in it, and I'll see you soon.